Hello everyone. Up for sale today on eBay is a very rare item. I've actually never seen one before. It's called a Quadram by Quadlink, and this is actually a really cool piece of hardware that I didn't know was around, but apparently this came out somewhere around, I think, 1982, 1983. And what this is actually an Apple II on a card. It's very clearly designed to work in the original IBM PC, which I'll show you from the actual design of the card here in a minute, but I just wanted to go ahead and give a quick demonstration of how this guy works. So what I've got here is actually a Packard Bell XT. This is a machine that I use for a lot of testing, and thankfully it was able to fit in here okay. I did have to use a different floppy cable than the one that originally shipped with the machine, the card itself, but I was able to get it to work temporarily in here. And I do have an original IBM PC, but I'm waiting to get a BIOS chip upgrade for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and test it in here, and it does actually seem to work okay. But let me go ahead and turn this guy on. I do have the original IBM monitor. I'll get to the connections on it in a minute. One thing I will say about this card is, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work every single time. It seems to be a little bit flaky, unfortunately, and I've reseated the chips that are socketed on there, and there's actually not many, but it does actually work most of the time. So if you see on the screen here, let me go ahead and just zoom in. It's actually loaded. I set in the auto exec file to load up the Quadlink driver, and now what it's going to ask for is what's called the filer disk. The filer disk is an Apple II disk that it loads something off of, and this is actually one of the places where it'll fail fairly often. Let's see if it's happy this time. There we go. So it actually loaded up, and you can see where it says press Control-Alt-A to go into Quadlink mode. So what that has done is it actually loads up a small TSR, which activates a hotkey to switch between Apple II mode and IBM mode, and it's ready to go right now. And let me stop the video here for just a second and reposition the camera where I can get a little better shot on the screen. Alright, there we go, it's a little better. Anyway, you can see it's ready to go in Quadlink mode, and I'll go ahead and I'll hit Control-Alt-A, and this is where the magic happens. It switches over, let the camera adjust, and you see Quadlink by Quadram. Now this is where the problem seems to happen a lot with the card when it does happen. Hopefully it'll work for me this time. If not, it seems like rebooting several times you can eventually get it to come up. But let me go ahead and hit Control-Delete. See all the @ signs? Nope. There it is hanging. So what it's supposed to do now is actually look like an Apple II in boot. But let me go ahead and restart it one more time. Hopefully I can get it to work. Just rebooted the machine. Skip the memory test. Okay, so now it's trying to load the filer disk. It's working. Control-Alt-A. Here it is, back, ready. Control-Delete. Once again. Alright, let's see if third time's a charm. I had to do this a number of times before. I've reseated the card, I've taken it in and out, and unfortunately it just doesn't come up every time. I think it seemed to be working a little better when the machine was warm. Now the good thing is, once it starts to work, it seems to continue to work until you turn the computer off. Once in a blue moon, it'll decide not to read the filer disk, and for a while I thought the filer disk was bad, but if I just kept retrying with the same disk, it would work. But now it seems to be loading pretty consistently. And there it is, back in. Nope. Once again. But I'm going to pause. I'm going to restart it a few times until I can get it to come up. Ah, there we go. So it took about 5 attempts, I guess, and I'll leave all those in the video there, and I'll just fast forward through them. But Anyway, this is the Filer disk utility, and as you can see now, we are actually an Apple II. There's your file. So I'll put in a different disk here, which is just some disks I downloaded off the internet. This is another Apple II formatted disk. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. Oh, it's over. Actually, I have it in the Apple II. Get it out of here. Actually, this isn't one I downloaded. This is the disc I got with some stuff I bought. It's got some old games on it, and I'll just go ahead and load up, I think it's Snapper here, some color. Actually, it's a good one to do an example with. So it's loading up actually on the PC floppy drive. Let me just spin over here and you can see it's loading it, an Apple II disk from a PC floppy. And it's running. It loads just as slowly. And actually I think personally Apple IIs are pretty fast for their era, but it does still load like an Apple II and behaves exactly like an Apple II. In fact, I have an Apple II sitting over here. What I'm going to do when I'm done is I'm going to load this program up on both of them and show you kind of how they load and run at the exact same speed. And I'll show you one other cool thing is you can at any time hit Control-Alt-I and you're right back into IBM mode. If I do a directory now, anyway, hit Control-Alt-A, right back to where you were. So one thing I have noticed is that the manual says that the arrow keys are supposed to be a combination of the escape key and the arrow key and the combination of some other key. If you do that on here, it doesn't seem to actually work right. I don't know if that's not because I'm not using an original IBM keyboard and the scan codes are different, although I wouldn't expect so because this is a basically an XT keyboard that I'm using, but maybe the scan codes on the original PC keyboard were a little bit different. I don't know if there's anything. I know there was some differences between the PC keyboard and the XT keyboard, but they were pretty minor as I recall, but I don't know if that contributes to it, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like the arrow keys work. Fortunately though, there actually is on the card a spot to plug in a real Apple joystick, so you can plug in an Apple joystick into the card, and just like you would with the internal slot on an Apple II, and use a real joystick on the card itself. So right now the other thing is the sound is not hooked up, and that's because the sound is designed to piggyback on the PC speaker, and the motherboard that I have in this machine actually has the card or the speaker soldered to the motherboard. So there's no way without me soldering around it to bypass it, but I did test it with a speaker before and it is working. I just don't have it plugged in at the moment, so that's why there's no sound. But it does do sound. In fact, when I'll show you the board, you can tell it's just literally an Apple II on a card. That's why I can switch back and forth from IBM mode back to the Apple mode with TSR, because it's really running an Apple II. So I'll go ahead and tell it to just start here. Keyboard control. And here it is. Now one of the things that's pretty cool that you couldn't do on an Apple II is you can actually switch back and forth from black and white to color mode. And I find that works a lot better on games that are in black and white because it switches clearly. And also the screen is super sharp because this is really a CGA image of the program itself. The card has a cable which daisy chains from a CGA connector into the card, or from a CGA card into itself, and then the monitor actually plugs into the back of the Quadlink itself. And that'll allow you to switch between monitors here. That's why it switches back and forth so quickly, because the card itself is just actually switching. So let me go ahead and stop for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to load Snapper up on both of these machines just so you can see them running side by side and just give you an idea of how similar this is to a real Apple II. Let me pause real quick. Alright, I'm trying to get a good shot here, but they're a little close together. I've got an Apple II over here, and I took the monitor down and set it next to the machine. And if you look at the screen, actually what I have going on is I have, if you're familiar with the CFFA 3000 card in here, which has a compact flash adapter, but I do have just regular floppy drives plugged into on slot 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell this machine to boot off of slot 6. I'm going to take the very same disk that I had in the PC over here that had Snapper and everything on it. Let me see if we focus on it here. There we go. And this is just a disc I got with some old machines I bought. I'm going to go ahead and put that over here in the Apple II drive. Let's point back these two guys real quick. Let me get you back to the main screen. And I'm going to go ahead and tell this computer to boot slot 6, which will boot up that same disk. Yeah, I didn't use the menu last time, I just loaded it manually, but here's that. So let me scroll down. Now it's loading up over here. Zoom back out to both of them. Oops. Move this keyboard over so I can hit them both at the same time. And one player, one keyboard, one keyboard. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit space on both of them at the same time. And here they go. And there's the sound that's actually coming out of the Apple II. So, anyway, you can see it's running pretty much the same speed as a real Apple II. Looks like this one's just a little luckier on autoplay than this one was. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. Let me go ahead and you hit Control Delete here. I'll show you. You can just go right back into IBM mode still the whole time you're playing, and right back to Apple. And if you hit Control Delete, it just resets the machine and reboots. And now there's no disk in it, so it's going to be unhappy. Let me stick this guy back in. There we go. Turn the Apple II off. There we go. It's pretty crazy to see Apple II software booting right up on a PC, and it boots right off of a regular PC floppy drive. In fact, let's just grab some random disk I have sitting here. Here's a print shop for the Apple. I'll stick this guy in. And go back over here. Escape. I'll just reboot it since it auto starts anyway. So yeah, you Control Delete. And yeah, you see the sign with all the @ signs that comes up. That's what it looks like at first, but like I said, this guy seems to hang quite a number of times, and that is where it will hang. So be aware that it's not working 100%, and I don't really know why. It honestly seems like when it warms up, it works a little better, so maybe there's a chip in there with a fault. It looks like there's a lot of programmable logic chips in there, so it seems possible that one of those chips is failing. They get hot too. I noticed one of them gets super hot, so I don't know if this thing's on its last leg or if this is just the kind of behavior it's going to experience after all these years. But like I said, right now, once I get it up, I seem to be able to just reboot it as many times as I want, and it keeps coming up. But sometimes when you first start it up, it just does not want to come up, and you get this kind of behavior. So right now, it's pretty happy. But I haven't tried to switch it while it's accessing the disk, but I'd probably recommend not doing that. It's a very odd card, the way this thing sets up, like the IBM mode. So, alright, I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to remove the card from the machine now and show you how it looks and how it works. Actually, wait, there's one other thing I want to show you. Like I said, the card is designed to daisy chain to a CGA adapter, and it actually looks exceptionally sharp. I think this is cleaner and sharper than I've ever seen on an Apple II. But there is a composite output on the back of the card too, and that unfortunately does not look very good. And I'll show you what that looks like here real quick. Let me pause and switch it over to the Apple II monitor. Can walk around back here and Should be able to plug both of these in at the same time and you can see what's happening. It's also typically not a good idea to push two monitors close together, but let's do it here for a second, just to give you an idea. Yeah, you can see the shift of the screen. For some reason, it's throwing a nice big artifact in the middle. I suspect there's something actually wrong on the card, but it won't sync color, and that's as good as it'll get. And it's not the monitor, even though this monitor is not 100% perfect. It actually does do better on that. There's something like over intensifying the video signal, and as you can see, the CGA signal is nice and sharp. And yeah, so anyway, I would not use this card unless you had an old XT with a CGA card. And let me stop here and I'll show you the actual card itself, and I think you'll see a little better why it really needs an original PC, or at least an XT with only 8-bit slots. This is definitely not going to fit in a 16-bit slot. Let me stop here and pull it out. So here's the card itself. This is definitely an interesting beast, and as you can see right here, the 8-bit slot has like a little overhang on it. And the other thing that's really interesting to note is this card actually has a black tab on it like the original IBM PC accessories. It's a narrower tab, which would indicate to me it's probably from the XT era, but I can't really tell for sure. I'm sorry if it's out of focus here. I'm trying to get it right. So right here, 6502 processor. Over here is 64K of RAM, and I know that they licensed Apple DOS and they licensed the ROM chip from Apple. So this, as far as I know, is an actual Apple II on a card designed to interface in with a PC. On the back here you can see there's two connectors. This is the CGA connector input and the CGA output. You plug a jumper wire in from your CGA card into the input here, and then you actually plug your monitor in here. And as I mentioned, there's a composite output up here, and I showed just a moment ago how that doesn't look really great. My guess is maybe this transistor somewhere in this area is probably the analog section, so maybe replace that transistor. Maybe it'll clean it up. Maybe the capacitors are bad, I don't know, but there's something going on with that circuit. But on the CGA side it looks great. The other thing that's really strange about this connector is this little bit right here. What this is the input and the output for the floppy connector. And the way this is designed, let me go grab this cable, is you are supposed to take your original PC floppy connector, and with this little adapter cable right here, you plug this into the edge connector on the back of the original floppy controller, and you plug this in here, and then you plug your floppy cable into this, into the machine. And that's what I had here from this floppy drive. This cable was actually plugged into there, and I had to use a different cable because I don't have the right connector, but I was able to plug this into it and then daisy chain it through. That's how it can control the floppy drive for both PC as well as Apple games. So this cable will come with it as well. And the last little thing to note here is you've got the joystick port at the top, and down here you have the connectors to daisy chain the PC speaker in. You can plug this into the motherboard if you have a connector on yours. And like I said, on my machine I don't have the connector, the speaker is just soldered into the board, but that's for daisy chaining the sound. And I did check it out and it does work, but I just didn't have it hooked up for the video. And also I mentioned this guy's locking up a bit, and this chip gets really hot. One of these, or it's not really locking up, it's just actually not starting. Interestingly, it seems like the hotter this chip gets, the more it stays on, but I don't know if that's related or if I'm just taking a wild guess here. But either way, it does work, but it is finicky. It does take a little bit of playing with to make it happy and to get it to come up. Sometimes it doesn't want to load the filer disk, but the sequence is fairly straightforward. There's a quad RAM disk that you load, and then it'll ask for the filer disk. The card did not come with the filer disk. I actually had to download that off the internet and make it on my Apple II. I did come with a quad RAM disk, which is supposed to auto boot with DOS 1.1, but unfortunately it does not boot. The file is still on the disk, so I was able to copy it off of there, but you have to boot some other way and then copy quadram.exe over. You just run that program. It'll ask you for the filer disk. As soon as you stick that in, the TSR to run the program is loaded, and then you just hit Control-Alt-A to switch to Apple mode and Control-Alt-I to switch back. So anyway, this will be up for sale on eBay shortly. It's a super rare card. I know new these were something like $680, and I'm not 100% sure what the utility of this card would be, other than being able to use Apple II software on your PC, which is just really cool for collectors today. It actually works really well when it does work. But you know, as far as its original function, I'm not sure if you'd want to use, you know, your Apple II spreadsheets on your PC, or if it was just so you could play games when the boss wasn't looking. That's what my wife and I seem to think. But anyway, that's it pretty much. It does come with the original box, comes with a manual, it comes with the original Quadlink boot disc, it comes with a video cable jumper, this jumper for the floppy connector, pretty much everything you need to get it up and running. But just be aware, it's old, it's finicky, it's sold as is. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.